good to see you too.
I want to hug too.
Thank you.
When I first heard you sing, I mean, I was blown away. But I didn't see a face, you know? So to show you how one can get caught into a cliche or whatever, I'm just assuming that you were African American.
Right, like everybody else.
You know? And so I saw this face. Why? I was shocked. But after the shock, you know, I didn't think anything of it. I'm sure you've gotten this a lot.
Oh yeah, you should have seen my mother's face.
Your mother's face.
I've been singing like this since I was a little baby. My mom took me to church one Sunday. It's a big, you know, Catholic 5,000 congregation, big church. She said, oh, well, I'll just grab the baby, and she kept me in my pajamas, and I'll just duck into the back of the church, and nobody will know that I'm there. The priest started chanting in Latin, Domino sit semper vobiscum, Amen. And I said, Deo, Deo. Daylight come and me guango. My mother was like, oh my God. What? And the whole, you know, of course, the whole church.
And it echoes too.
Oh, in the big Catholic church, it echoes all over.
Yes.
And so, you know, where, she was like, what is wrong with my baby? Where does this come from? You know. 2 years old. You know,
2 years old.
My first professional performance was at 8. I performed at with a 36-piece orchestra at a place called the Castaways up in the hills. And I really feel that God touched me. I was in high school and I was in the school play, The Music Man. I had the lead in The Music Man. And I was about 16, and one of my friend's mothers came to rehearsal one day, and she's from Detroit. Black Bertha Lynn Stewart Hawley Vaughn Jackson the third.
Oh my goodness.
And she said, Tamara Lynn? She said, who is that little girl? Because in Detroit they say Gil. And she said, that's my friend Teena that I'm always talking about. She said, do you want to meet her? And she was like, oh yes. And she walked up to me and she said, baby, you a bad hussy.
That's
She
Detroit.
said, you gonna be a big star one day, you mark my words. Well, there was something about this woman that I knew. And she took me in, because by that point, I was kind of out of my family. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of out there. Mm-hmm. And she's a very strong Christian woman. And she loved me, took me in the house, and she loved me as she loved her own daughters. Years later, at 61, she got sick, and she had cancer, and she was dying. And this woman was like my second mother. Mm-hmm. She was really like my mother. So when she got sick, I was so scared, you know, because she came along at a time in my life where I really needed direction. She'd always tell me, I love you, but God loves you best. You know, she's just a very, very strong woman. But we were in the hospital that day. She had lung cancer, so she couldn't really talk well. But she was very funny, so she kept trying to talk to me. She kept taking the thing out of her mouth to help her breathe, to talk to me. And I was like, why don't you just let me talk for a minute? And I said, do you know how much I love you? And she said, yes. She said, you love me. You love me like I was your own mother. A few days later, I got a call from her daughter, and she said, girl, she said, guess who was at the hospital? And I said, I don't know. She said, Mary Ann was here today. I said, Mary Ann, my mother? She said, Mary Ann came to the hospital today, and Mary Ann wiped my mother's brow.
Oh my God.
And took care of my mama all day. And my mother, a few years later, after I had my own daughter, at one of my best friend's weddings, she came up to me and she said, she was crying. And I said, Mama, what's wrong with you? She said, I was so unkind to you. And she said, I was a racist, and your dad was a racist. And she said, but I'm not a racist no more. She said, I didn't understand what you were trying to do. And I said, Mama, I said, that's all I ever wanted to hear. She said, I'm just happy that I got it before I left this earth.
This to me indicates a true intervention because it's all God.